Motions, resolutions, call of the districts.
Members, motions, resolutions, and call of the districts. Mr. Kaplowitz.
And I'm sure others will as well, but I just would be remiss not to note the passing of Bob Boland, and certainly condolences to his family. Bob is someone who, except for those of us in the room and those who personally knew Bob, you didn't get to know Bob, yet you really should have, because he was a very wonderful person. You should have, because Bob had a lot to teach, and he did it in that very quiet way. Bob walked around with a pencil, with an eraser at the end of it, and that was kind of Bob's life. He didn't really feel like he needed much more. He was a very, very simple man that always went in his top pocket here. On a personal basis, I learned quite a bit when I was a young lad joining the Budget Appropriations Committee, and he never corrected you in meeting, but always would come up to you afterwards and comment, and that's how I and so many of us learned. And he had that wonderful smile and that great wit, and really that handle on numbers that no one else has had. And there are a lot of good people we've had, but Bob just had a way of doing it. So I think he beat the computers. I think he beat the slide rule. Couldn't beat the actuarial table, but for those of us that got to know Bob and work with Bob, we'll always remember Bob. And he, for the betterment of the people of Westchester County, really did a nice job of looking at the numbers. He was really the checks and balances for the Board of Legislators in a world where I think he was it, and yet he looked at the budget each and every year, inside and out, and institutionally, we're going to miss him, and personally, I'm going to miss him as well. So, God bless Bob Boland.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplowitz. Other members? Members, and Mr. Kaplowitz, we're going to give absolutely a few minutes and moments for people to have some reflections with Bob Boland. You know, Bob, as you said, was not only an institution here for the Board of Legislators. And one of the things that always struck me, that for Bob Boland, and for those of you that knew him really well, and that's most of us here, before he retired in 2010 and became the consultant to us. But if you had an opportunity to sit with Bob, there was just the institutional knowledge, and that's why he was our representative on the medical center. Mr. Harker made sure that he appointed him as our non-voting member for the medical center board, because of his great institutional knowledge of just the medical center, but all of the county functions. And he harkens to that day, because clearly he was in the administration of this Board of Legislators, as many of our central staff members have been, whether it's been Democrats or Republicans, that he was the person that gave us a foundation. And certainly I know that our current fiscal director, Ms. Rhodes, and certainly Ann Reesner and David as well, David Cabibo, felt great loss, and all of us here felt great loss with losing not only just an institutional knowledge, but as a friend. You know, Bob Boland had cancer, and at the end of his life was very difficult. But you know, his family members, in speaking with the clerk of the board, and certainly with Olivia and Ann, throughout his time, Bob would check in on various things just to see that we were doing well, and folks would check on him as well. But he harkens to that day where I'm not sure what happened along the way, that people were afraid to come down to the Board of Legislators for the Budget and Appropriations Committee meetings, because they knew that they would be grilled, not just only by the legislators around the table, but they also knew that Bob Boland was sitting in the background and sitting at the desk with his books out and ready to go to the files, to use a different person's term, and pull out the information and be able to show it to you and show you why things worked a certain way. And it was not a question on what side of the aisle that you were on as a legislator. That respect was given to whoever that was, and that was a testament to Bob, and certainly a testament to how people operated with the Board of Legislators, and certainly being able to call a department and ask for information and get that information without having to have a subpoena or anything like that, to get that stuff that we need in the oversight role. So Bob was a a tremendous person, not just from an institution perspective, but as a human being. My only personal reflection that I want to make for Bob is that I'm really sorry he didn't have a good chance to enjoy retirement the way that we would hope all of us when we achieve that level because of the passing of his wife. His wife had cancer as well. So, he's there together with his wife, Ellie, and certainly that's a benefit for Bob, but didn't get a really good chance to enjoy his time as a retired person, having served so many years in the fiscal area here at the board, but outside in the finance world. And with that pencil that Mr. Kaplowitz reported to, not afraid to take it out and use it as far as erasing a number and saying this is the case, but understanding each and every place and being able to show you how a dollar amount today, where it was going to end up and how it was going to impact, not tomorrow, not next month, not next year, but 2 years down the road. So we're going to miss that part, but certainly, we have our erstwhile staff that has their experience as well in the county government and finding little things out, and Bob, as they would tell us, trained them well, right? So we appreciate all the things that Bob did for us. Mr. Mazzano.
I would just like to add about Bob Boland. I think it's fair to say he was a tremendous public servant. Bob probably knew the budget as well as anybody in this county over the last 100 years. And I remember after I got elected, like all new legislators, I attended the budget meetings. And the first one I ever attended as a new legislator, I was, I guess, legislator-elect. I can't remember who it was. It was somebody in the O'Rourke administration. And Bob Boland was like a cross-examination, like you described, Ken. He was asking really tough questions, and he wouldn't let him off the hook. And the commissioner was trying to wiggle out of it. And Bob Boland was like an attorney, asking really tough questions. And he was doing that to protect the taxpayers of Westchester. And I think that's why he was a tremendous public servant. The other thing I would point out about Bob was he really cared about the legislators. And he really cared about helping us represent our districts. I can't tell you how many times Bob stopped me in the hallway over the last 16 years and said, "Did you know this was going on? This is something to keep an eye out." You'd come in and to be in your box a little note from Bob with some backup about something going on in your district. He was that kind of public servant. He was bipartisan. He cared. He took his job very seriously, but he really cared about all of us. And he really wanted us to represent our districts well. And that's what I'll always remember about Bob Boland. He really was somebody that took his job seriously. He was a tremendous public service, and he really cared about all of us, regardless who sat in these chairs. He was a friend to all the legislators. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzano. Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's not a lot to be said about Bob that has not been said by you and Mr. Kaplowitz, Mr. Mazzano. I had the privilege, as many of you, as serving as a legislator under Bob's tutelage, but I also had the pleasure of being an office mate with Bob for Bob's last 2 years. And I was able to see much more of that sense of humor and the smile. When we were in the Committee on Budget and Appropriations, it was all business for Bob. Bob loved to laugh, had a great smile, and loved his jelly beans. And could get a little grumpy when people were stealing his jelly beans, but he loved that it gave pleasure, and he really cared about the medical center. He taught me quite a bit about the medical center, and he cared about it because he knew it cared for Westchester's neediest. And he knew that there were people working there who were impacted by the decisions that were made that was going there. So even as Bob started stepping back from the day-to-day operations of the board, his moral compass kept him focused, kept me engaged, and I'm just going to miss walking in the morning and seeing that smile light up as I walked in the door. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harcum. The last thing I want to say is that the family members, specifically Donna, were very clear. Donna, Bob, Geraldine, Martin, and Neil, thank you, all wanted to express to all the legislators, and they wanted, when I spoke to them a couple of times. They wanted to express to all of us, to our clerk, to Olivia and Ann, to everyone that's involved in the Board of Legislators, how much they appreciate the support all of us gave to them, whatever ways it was, whether it was a phone call or whether it was just checking in with them. So again, I wanted to thank all of you for the kind words that you said tonight. But again, we'll miss Bob. We'll figure out something. We're going to get like a box and pencils in the boardroom and figure out a way that, as a desk or something, that we can make sure to recognize, Bob and the things that Bob has done as far as trying to recognize us as the legislature and respecting legislators, all of us. Again, no matter what side of the aisle, that when there was a question asked, as Mr. Mazzano said, you did not get off the hook. You didn't say, go talk to somebody else. You didn't need permission. Bob made sure to find out for the legislature, and we need to figure out how to get some of that back. So if we could all please rise and have a moment of silence for all of the people mentioned in the memorial resolutions, but specifically for a Board of Legislators institution and Bob Boland.